Welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today, very excited to be kicking off another video of the Isofarian Guard from Sky Kingdom Games. We're going to pick things up exactly where we left it off in the previous Part 1 video. If you haven't checked out that or the overview video that had reprint information as well as setup for the campaign, I'll put the entire showcase link in the top right-hand corner so you can get caught up. All of this to help you make an informed decision on the upcoming GameFound reprint hitting September 5th. So without further ado, let's head right back into the gameplay where we left off in the last video. Now, just for clarity's sake, in terms of where we left it off in the last video, we had made it to the tutorial being complete in chapter number 1, and we now begin the exploration phase. We know the narrative chip was placed on node 102, which is right here. We're currently on node 63, a party of 2, Alec and Grigory. We can now start moving towards this narrative chip. Now, we don't have to move directly to it. We have the ability to go ahead and even traverse out and look elsewhere and interact with the lands how we choose. But if we want to move the story forward, we can head in this direction. So you'll see here we still have a little bit to go before we get to the end officially of chapter number 1. We're going to be doing this at the front portion of this video, but the large majority of this video will be inside of chapter 2, as I'm going to go ahead right now and move from here all the way through the fastest mode of travel to this next narrative chip. I'll be doing this off camera and then telling you exactly what happened and what I gained while moving through those nodes. Now, just before I go ahead and do that, I want to also mention the fact that now that we're outside the tutorial, I want to talk about the fact that during the exploration phase, there's a bunch of things that can happen or you can do inside of this phase. You have the ability to explore Isofar, so you can travel between nodes, begin narrative events, harvest, mine, fish, begin field events. You can choose to craft equipment at a blacksmith. You can rest at an inn. You can purchase and sell materials at a marketplace. You can also customize your guards. There's changing of equipment, changing of abilities, advancing skill trees. That is something I'll definitely be focusing on, the skill tree aspect, as soon as I get progress from here all the way down to our narrative chip. Other things we can do is rebuilding Fort Istra. We'll talk more about that later on, using items and dropping items, and we also have side quests when that becomes available. Now, currently my party's Lux Essence is at 8. I would love to get up to 10 in order to unlock something on a skill tree that I'm eyeing, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to explore in Isofar, hoping to take down something I can use to build up my Lux. As we arrived at node 68, drew from the event bag and got a single skull, which we have a Brigand Marauder, which we had to take down. We were successful in doing so, and this individual is going to provide us with 2 Lux Essence and 3 Sil. We currently have 8 Lux Essence. As I mentioned prior, we have 1 Sil, so we'll be going up to 4 Sil and 10 Lux. Now with 10 Lux Essence, let's talk about advancing skill trees. Here is the guard skill trees for both characters we're controlling, Grigory and Alec, and this is from chapters 1 through 4 for both of them. There's a key at the bottom to help you out. This will also let you know the cost for each of the upgrades as you go along through the skill tree. So for chapter 1 upgrades, you're going to be looking at 10 Lux, chapter 2, 25, chapter 3, 40, and chapter 4, 75. So as you pick from the one you've already unlocked, in this case for Grigory, we already have cross slash, it's X'd off, tells us we can have it in chapter 1 one, as that's the requirement. We get it from the beginning of the game, as you already know. Reinforcement, same thing for Alec. When we acquired Alec in the party, he already had this by default. But now we take a look across the nodes, and you're going to see that they represent what chapter you can unlock them in. So as of right now, we can't touch this one, and we can't touch this one on Grigory because it has to be adjacent to or connected to one you've already unlocked. So we can only look at this one, and this one as options for Grigory. Same thing over here for Alec. It's these three we have as options. And as of right now, we have 10 Lux, so we're only going to be able to upgrade one person if we want to spend that 10 Lux. And I'm eyeing the Combine here for Alec. Now, just before I go ahead and unlock Combine, which is a guard ability for Alec, I want to talk about other types of things you can unlock through your character as you progress through the campaign. So you do have guard abilities, you have speaking stones you can potentially unlock, you have chips that you can unlock, and you can also modify stats on your hero's dashboard. So the chips are easy to identify as they're simply just icons for the chips, and that's it. If you happen to see an icon but you see a modifier next to it, that lets you know it's not a chip, it's actually a stat increase. So make sure you keep an eye out for those +1s, +2s. You can see with Alec all the way up here, once you get to chapter number 4, the +2s are available for stat increases. Pretty nice. You then have speaking stones, as I mentioned. There's more of them beyond the one we've already unlocked for this character down the line, so something else to keep an eye out for, and of course guard abilities throughout. So the new guard ability for Combine for Alec is now on his guard ability dashboard. We've also paid the 10 Lux Essence to do it. Here's the secondary side of the card. We'll talk more about how this card is used when you actually see it in use during battle. But I want to mention something. You'll see on screen a newly revised version of this secondary side of the card. It now costs 2 swords, and the portion at the bottom of the card is different. It says if Alec has 1 primary active, attack all enemies for an attack value, your base, +2, and flip 1 non-active card. So this is a big change from this original version of this card. However, for the purposes of this playthrough, we'll continue to play it as it's printed today. We're going to continue our journey south. We're actually going to head right past the nearest town to node 87. As we arrived at the node, we ran into a stone hunter after pulling a 3-skull token from the bag and successfully took it down. This provides the party with 8 Lux Essence and 1 rough leather. Here's a look at the rough leather that we gained from the prior fight on 87, and the party's moved to the next node in line, which is 93, and pulled a compass. I decided not to engage with any enemies. Also wanted to show you from the prior node that I did get my 8 Lux Essence captured on the dial. We now moved to node 92, and we ran into a 3-skull, which had a 2-star Stone Hunter and a 1-star Falmund Scout coming after us. Now this battle was really lucrative for us because as we took these 2 individuals down, you'll see the Lux Essence was 4 for this one, 8 for this one. We already had 8. It now jumps up to 20, and we know that in order to purchase something on the skill tree during chapter 1, it is 10 Lux. We now have the availability to purchase something twice during an upgrade, which is awesome. So we're going to go ahead and do that in the near future, but we're also getting bump ups to our metal fragments and rough leather. This is currently what is already equipped in our party, so we're ticking them up by 1 each. And just like that, we're squared away. We'll place these materials back onto Grigory's board, and at this point we're going to do some skill tree upgrading. We have 20 Lux to spend on the skill trees. You'll see I've used cubes in order to note visually which ones I've already unlocked to make it easier to see. We again can only unlock ones that are adjacent to ones we've already unlocked before. So for Alec, and seeing as we have 20 Lux, we might as well split it across both of these guards. 1 will go for Alec, 1 will go for Grigory. So we're going to have Alec take some defense chip into his bag. That's a nice upgrade for him. He's not as strong on defense as Grigory is, and Grigory is going to go for the offense side of the equation with a sword chip. And it's worth mentioning that these are just colored rings. Do not take a green chip by accident when adding these chips to your bag. They are in fact black chips going into the bag. So we have a shield for Alec and a sword for Grigory. Our party now moves to node 91. We pulled a compass, and I'm choosing not to fight this time. We now make it to node 90, and again, another compass, and again, I'm going to choose not to fight. At the next node, I pulled from the event bag, and I got 2 skulls, which are 2 marauders coming at me of various levels. Let's find out what they gave us after taking them down. The successful battle provided us 6 Lux Essence as well as 8 Sil. That's a really big jump in Sil. As we only had 4, we now have 12 Sil, and our Lux has been depleted down to 0 because we've already spent 30 Lux. We now gain 6. We'll continue onwards to the next yellow node, which is actually hiding underneath the narrative chip. This chip represents the 102 right now, so we're going to head down to 99. We pulled a compass chip for the event, so with the option to go ahead and fight something if we wish across the 3 different tiers at this node, but I don't want to. We are very close to interacting with the narrative chip, so we're not going to battle here. It's also worth mentioning, if you get in a situation where, say, for instance, your health of your characters is getting quite low, and I'm actually kind of getting to that point right now where I'm a little bit wary of heading into battle, so this compass chip was a great thing to get. The thing to note is that you can try and retreat from battle. When you do so, the enemy's going to take a swipe at you, so they get 1 attack against you, and then you can go ahead and retreat. At this point, we've reached node 102, which is Fort Istra. We have the Fort Istra mini-map on the board, as the campaign states to do. We've taken out all the buildings because we don't have anything built here just yet. We're going to read Chapter 2's beginning in the campaign book as we move from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2, and that's also going to end off the fast-forwarding gameplay I talked about in terms of not showing battles as we traversed across the land all the way to Fort Istra.
Ages ago, the Drevny Forest began life as a congregation of hardy young pine trees. The quick-growing pine wood was perfect for laying the foundations of the empire that would follow. In those early days, just after the Sundering, it is said that the forest was harvested nearly to extinction. In place of the trees stood great fortresses stretching all along Isofar's southern border. Generations of soldiers lived and died defending the border against Falmund, until, after years of stalemate, an uneasy truce was formed. The border forts were gradually abandoned, and the Drevny forest grew wild and dense, reclaiming the land for itself. It was through this ancient gnarled forest that Dunamis led your small company. After navigating the labyrinthine forest for days, you now stand before the ruins of an ancient fort. Tree roots and smaller vegetation have worked together to take down large sections of the wall. The inner buildings lay in similar ruins. You pick out a smithy, recognizable only by the forge poking out of the rubble and the distinctive circular layout of a guard tower, now tumbled in on itself. You can only guess at what the other buildings may have been. You don't know what you expected, but it wasn't this. Dunamis has been strangely quiet, but now he stops just outside the gate and turns to address everyone.
Welcome to Fort Istra. It doesn't look like much now, but there is more here than meets the eye.
With that, he steps through the open gate and completely disappears. There are audible gasps from those around you. You somehow manage to keep the surprise off your face. There is nothing left to do but lead the others into the fort.
The guards' bus chips now move to the training yard in Fort Istra. It's also important to note going forward, now that we're in chapter number 2, we're now referencing the chapter 2 enemy index when we deal with battles in the future.
As you follow the captain to the open gate, you notice a slight shimmer in the air. You pass through the shimmering air and step into a large yard. Immediately, you are met by an unnatural silence. The sounds of the trees and the nearby river have suddenly gone quiet. Other than that, nothing appears to have changed. The fort still lies in ruins all around you. But then you notice Dunamis and wonder how you could have missed him. The unremarkable man is no longer there. In his place stands a giant of a man covered head to toe in shining golden armor. Speaking stones are fastened to the armor, surrounded by intricate designs. He casually rests one massive hand on a great sword, which is planted in the ground. With a shock, you realize the sword is taller than you. Though there is no physical similarity to the man who led you here, you still recognize him as Dunamis. As more people enter the gate, you are secretly pleased to see the same shocked expressions playing across their faces when they notice Dunamis. Dunamis allows a few moments for you and your awestruck companions to compose themselves before he begins to speak.
It is not my intention to frighten you. You are merely seeing me as I truly am. I assure you, you have nothing to fear here.
His deep, rumbling voice does nothing to lessen the apprehension you feel. You do your best to push the fear down and focus on what he is saying.
The barrier you pass through serves as a gateway. This place both is and isn't part of Isofar. Time does not flow the same way here. This is a place you can rest, a sanctuary from Tenebris. Here, you will learn to use the power of the speaking stones. Not all of you are called to be fighters, but you all have a vital role to play. Stay here as long as you like. Rest, train, grow stronger. Just know that when you leave this place, you return to a world that still needs your help. The influence of Tenebris darkens all of Telios.
Grigory is the first to find his voice.
Thank you for bringing us here, Dunamis. This place is truly a wonder. But when we leave here, how will we fight against Tenebris? It is not something we can strike at with steel or pierce with arrows.
The battle against Tenebris will be fought in the hearts of people. Your greatest weapon is not a sword, but the truth. You must rally the people of Isofar to rise up and cast off the shadows that are binding them.
Where shall we begin?
You are surprised to find that the question came out of your own mouth.
Forgive me, Dunamis, but this task seems too large to accomplish alone.
Dunamis turns his gaze towards you, and you suddenly feel very uncomfortable.
You are not alone.
You sense the reassuring voice speaking to you, even now in the back of your mind, and you are ashamed at your momentary lack of faith.
You are not expected to win back this world by yourselves. There are stonebound all across Telios, fighting against Tenebris even as we speak. Each of us can only do our part.
And what is our part to be?
North of here are the farmlands of Mir. A war is brewing there between the farming guilds. If you can end the growing conflict and convince the people of Mir to join you, you will have access to a stable food supply, expert craftsmen, and most importantly, people. You are leading a movement now.
I understand. We will make for Mir as soon as we are settled here. Will you be coming with us? Your help would go far in bringing hope to Isofar.
I am needed elsewhere, but I shall aid you when I can. Remember, there is one greater than me who is always with you.
As you listen to Dunamis imparting his final words, the speaking stones on his armor get steadily brighter, until there is a flash of light, and Dunamis is gone.
The guards now head to the barracks of Fort Istra.
With Dunamis gone, everyone is looking to you now. After seeing Dunamis's true form, you can't help but feel a little inadequate. After Dunamis's grand exit, everyone is still clumped together, no doubt a little overwhelmed and finding comfort in the company of others. You think it best to get everyone's mind off of the big picture and focus on the here and now. Job assignments.
Okay, everyone, listen up. Our mission is to save Isofar from the threat of Tenebris.
There are a few chuckles at this, and a voice calls out.
Not just Isofar, but apparently all of Telios.
More laughter. You're pleased to see that morale is up.
Yes, all of Telios. But let's start with Isofar, shall we?
A chorus of eyes rises up from the small group.
We need to focus on what we can do right here, right now. Food and shelter is a priority. When our immediate needs are met, we can focus on rebuilding this place. I'd like to get that forge up and running again, and rebuild these barracks. We'll need to make this place something that can support an army.
Captain, I'm pretty good with my hands. If we can secure the right materials and a little help, it shouldn't be too hard to get these buildings back in working order.
Good man, Ban. I'll entrust you to lead the rebuilding effort.
Yes, sir.
You scan the remaining group and see eager eyes staring back at you, hungry to be given a task. You pick Kellen out of the group and call him to stand at your side.
You all know Kellen. He is an excellent soldier with an impeccable record. I'm sure at some point each of you have been bested by him in training. I'll be leaving Kellen in charge while Alec and I make the journey to recruit people from Mir. He will hand out job assignments and act in my stead while I am gone.
A light round of cheers goes up from the group.
Thank you, sir. I'll do my best to make you proud.
I am already prouder than you know. The courage each of you has displayed in coming here is inspiring. I am only afraid that more will be asked of you in the coming months. Whatever lies ahead, I can't help but share in your optimism. Maybe it's this place, or maybe it's the voice lending us courage. Whatever it is, I feel we can't lose.
Well said, Captain. When will you and Alec be off?
I was thinking dawn tomorrow. What do you think about that, Alec?
Sounds good, Captain. This place is amazing, and I know Dunamis said we can stay as long as we want, but I want to get out there and start making things right.
Tomorrow it is, then. Kellen, I trust you'll do an excellent job while we're gone.
The campaign book tells us that we've looked through the ruins of the fort and we managed to salvage materials there. We found ourselves 2 smoke bombs, 2 purifying seeds. We got 4 iron ore and 4 rough leather now. Now, when I say now for the rough leather, it's because Gregory already had 2 and we gained 2 more, so we have a total of 4. Now, we also gained metal fragments as well. We gained 4 of those, but we already had 3 on Gregory, so we'll simply just uptick this by 1 more. So we now have 4 there. We'll also use the other card we can use, which has 1 on one side and 2 on the other, to represent another 2. And we still have 1 more, but we don't have any more cards, so that 1 extra will go to the stash. We also gained 4 pine as well. Now, at this point in the campaign, a number of things begin to unlock. The first thing is Fort Istra. It's in ruins right now, but we're trying to rebuild it, as that will actually unlock new content and mechanics for us as we go through the gameplay. So there's a section here in the index book on 64 and going forward that will describe all of this for the purposes of play. I will not go into the details of this. We don't plan to actually build anything at this point in time. The important thing to note here is that there is a stash in Fort Istra where you're able to stash some of the things we just gained, for instance, there, so we don't actually have to keep them in slots on our characters. Now, you'll likely notice we've jumped to page 95, which is where the stash is, as I want to show you the visual of that and how you can actually record things when you have more of a resource than you actually have cards to represent, or you decide to take things out of the satchel slots of your hero and place them in the stash here at the fort, or even potentially take them out of the stash and onto your hero. Remember, if you're in a different city or town and you're trying to craft something, you need to have those resources on you. They cannot be at the fort while you're somewhere else. So you're going to want to keep that in mind as well. You're going to notice we were on page 64, now we're on 95. That's a lot of pages in between. That is how much content, roughly. There's even a little bit more beyond this in terms of Fort Istra. There's challenges, there's new content, there's different mechanics, there's advanced challenges, there's all kinds of things that can expand the game out from this location. I'm not going to get into all of it, but you'll find it all in the index book. Now, with Fort Istra being active, the 2 things it tells you to do in the campaign book is to read the Welcome to Fort Istra as well as the band's request. Something else that unlocks is Caravan Quest. It begins on node 61. So a new chip in play to interact with. If you want to find out more about what the Caravan Quests have to offer, you're going to want to check out page 112 of the Quest Coilbound book. And that's not all. Another thing that unlocks is side quests, and it talks about how these operate on this page, and it uses a scroll chip to denote where in the game world that this is going to be placed. You get the option to choose when you want to go on a side quest, and when you do, you simply follow the instructions and place this scroll chip where the side quest resides, and then of course once you reach it, you can interact with it. Now, if you're interested in seeing what side quests you have available currently, it's based on the chapter that you're in. You'll see on the next page in the quest book book, which is page 4, it will break things out by chapter. So chapter 2 is where we focus in this case, as that's the only ones I can actually go on right now. I cannot access anything side quest wise from chapter 3 or 4 until I reach those chapters. Now, with looking in this section, we'll see 3 different quests we could go on potentially. We have pages as to where they reside. We also have the starting node in terms of where the chip will sit. And then these side quests have multiple parts, some of them longer than others. The campaign book now tells us to place the narrative chip north of where we are in Fort Istra on node 83. The campaign book tells me to move into the exploration phase, so I need to decide before I make my next move as to what I want to do with the items I've got here at the fort. Do I want to put some of them in the stash? Do I want to put some of them in my satchel slots on my party? The one thing to note is that there are limits for each of them, so you can't go over 4 for your party of any one given thing. So for instance, with the metal fragments here, the iron ore, you can only have at max 4. So I'm showing a 2 here, and I know I told you earlier I had 4, 2, and a 1. So the 1 is in the stash for the metal fragment. I'm going to be placing the other 2 in the stash. So I'll have 3 metal fragments in the stash. I'll bring these 4 with me, the 4 pine, the 4 rough leather, the 4 iron ore, these 2 smoke bombs, and I also want to leave some slots open because remember I only have 8 across both characters. So I'm going to actually leave the purifying seeds behind. Here's a look at the loadout for my 2 characters in terms of who's carrying what. It appears Grigory is carrying the majority of the resources. I just did it in this fashion. Now the smoke bomb is on both of them. There used to be a health potion there, but both of them used it in order to survive their journey and battles that they went through. When I fast forwarded things at the very beginning of the video, as we traverse from the node we started on all the way to Fort Istra. Now it's worth mentioning in the reprint, when you get to Fort Istra for the very first time, it doesn't mention this in the current printing, you're going to get a free heal. So once you get there, and of course you're going to have some battles along the way, you'll get a free heal to get you going. So in this case, we're back up to 20 health, and we're ready to leave Fort Istra and head to the next city. So our party is going to leave Fort Istra, and we're going to head from 106 to 103. We'll also be fast forwarding this journey from here to the city, and then also once we get to the city, I'll show you some cool stuff there. Then we'll fast forward again from the city to the narrative chip up here. So we've gone ahead and already dealt with the Brigand Marauder. It was just a single star one, and we got it based on the single skull chip. Let's see what we get on the opposite side. We've actually taken out a couple of these prior as well. We got ourselves 3 sil and 2 lux. So lux will go up to 8 for us, and we'll have 15 sil. We continue to node 104, and we pulled a compass chip, and I'm not looking to start any fights in this situation. Let's just continue heading to the city. We arrive at Razdor, so we'll grab the mini-map to see what we have inside the city. We find ourselves at the southwest gate of Razdor. Knowing that we have a ton of resources with us from Fort Istra, I'm heading right to the blacksmith. As we arrive at the blacksmith, we now get to find out what we can potentially make there. Here is a list of all the things the blacksmith can create so long as it has the materials to do it, and based on the tips section of Rulepop, it told me that there's something here that's very, very good for Grigory, and that is in the bottom left-hand corner called the Volk Blade. In order for this to be created, we need to have the materials of a captain's blade, 2 iron ore, and 4 pine, as well as spending 15 sil. So we'll hand over to the blacksmith 15 sil, 4 pine, the captain's blade, as well as 2 iron ore. After some time, the blacksmith comes back with the Volk Blade for us. Our sil is now down to 0, and our iron ore has dropped to 2. Now, the Volk Blade doesn't just look cool, it also bumps up Grigory's stat, and it's going to be the attack stat. As we flip it over to the opposite side, you'll see an open slot here, which we'll talk about in a second, but there it is, a 1, meaning that this attack base is going to go up to 4 now, which is awesome. So we're going to go ahead and slot the garnet into this sword. It's worth mentioning that you have to slot this garnet into the sword in order to be able to keep the cross/speaking stone in play on your guard ability dashboard. So for instance, if I had crafted a sword that did not have this slot, then I would not be able to use cross/ because the speaking stone is literally hooked and slotted right into the weapon I'm using. So I use the open slot on the Volk Blade, and that's going to allow the garnet to connect into it, and cross/ is available for us as it was before. At this point, we're going to fast forward through the exploration phase as I head right towards the narrative chip. We've now arrived at the manor, and we were able to avoid any conflict on the way there, which was nice, and we're going to head into the narrative to find out what happens here.
Walking the road to Mir with the captain is almost idyllic. The sun is up, and the wheat fields are swaying in a gentle breeze.
You see all this farmland, Captain? This is Golden Scythe territory.
Golden Scythe? What's that?
Not a what, a who. Or rather, a bunch of who's. It's one of the farming guilds Dunamis spoke of. We've been walking through Golden Scythe lands for the last couple of hours. You've really never heard of them?
Now that you mention it, maybe. I'm originally from Silmi, and most of my command has kept me in the north, so I've never familiarized myself much with the politics surrounding Mir.
Growing up, that's all I ever heard. I grew up northeast of Mir, in a village so small it doesn't even have a name. My family are Broken Plow people.
Broken Plow? That's another guild?
Yes, and to hear them tell it, the only real farmers in Isofar. You see, us Broken Plow people pride ourselves in growing stuff where stuff isn't supposed to grow. We break our backs day after day fighting against rocky soil and shorter growing seasons, while those Golden Scythe folks have their crops hand-delivered to them by Uvidat himself.
Grigory raises his eyebrows at you.
And you believe all that?
No, but I've heard enough drunk farmers blustering about Broken Plow pride to last me a lifetime. Part of the reason I joined the Guard was to get away from it all. I always thought there was more jealousy than pride in their talk. Now that I'm seeing these crops, I can tell you that the jealousy wasn't misplaced.
Grigory smiles along with you.
I think the Guard was a good choice for you. I can't quite picture you as a farmer.
You or my parents. I think they're secretly relieved I didn't stay on.
You round a bend in the road, and there before you sits an immaculate manor house resting in the shade of two great oak trees. Behind the manor are several large barns and granaries. You imagine that such an estate would be buzzing with activity, but it is suspiciously quiet. Come to think of it, there were no workers in the fields either. Something isn't right. You look at Grigory and see that he has come to the same realization. Before you take another step, two men step out of the fields and block the road. They wear Golden Scythe colors over armor consisting of little more than padded shirts, but their spears seem sharp enough.
Who are you? What is your business here?
We're now given a fork in the road. We have a decision to make. We can explain that we're just passing through, or we can defend ourselves.
You draw your sword and point it at the leader.
You gave up your right to ask questions the moment you leveled that spear at us.
Well, if you won't talk, let's see how well you can fight.
So I've chosen to go up against the soldiers, and we're not being ambushed, so the guards get to go first. Now I'm going to choose to have Alec activate first, and quickly I want to talk about how he's different than Grigory. So one thing you'll notice with Alec is that these three cards specifically do not have the icon for flipping over. In other words, if we activate one of these potions, they don't just flip to their other side automatically. How this works with Alec, seeing as he's combining potions together, is he is literally going to use his guard ability combine. He has to activate this ability that will give him the ability to either do one of two things. One is he can trigger an empower effect on one card. So you'll see these empower keywords. This is very different than Grigory, so he can pick one of those bottom ones to trigger if he activates combined, or if he activates combined, he can instead, if two other potions are active, then he can flip the non-active one to the other side. That's a way in which you can start to use the opposite or secondary side of what Alec has going on. The other thing to note, if you activate combined, you're going to notice in the top left-hand corner that it does state to flip it, so when you get to the cleanup phase, that is one card I currently have for Alec right now that will flip in that cleanup phase so long as it's active. Now, just before we go ahead with Alec's turn, I want to show you up close what each of these soldiers has going on. They're both exactly the same, so their stats are set 10 health, 2 defense, 3 attack, and 2 AP. It's now time for Alec to dig inside the bag and find out what chips he's going to get. We're going to pull one out. The first one out of the bag is going to be a sword. The next one out of the bag is going to be a shield. I'm going to start things off by using the shield here. We're going to spend 1 AP. We're using the elixir. I get to add 1 green sword chip and 1 shield chip to Alec's bag or an ally's bag. I'm going to choose to place these in Grigory's bag. So as you can clearly see, Alec is a very good supportive character to have, and this character is able to provide chips to other individuals as well as himself, and it's also worth mentioning he can also provide AP boosts as well, so like this character can be huge in pumping Grigory up over time, and also just getting things going with Alec. Alec can become very, very productive very, very quickly. And of course, being that Alec is more supportive, doesn't really have that melee mentality, so as a stat to start, I've got 2 attack. So if I try to make even a basic attack with his short sword, the defense of those soldiers is equal to that, which means that is going to be a wash. So putting this sword into this slot, not a good idea. For right now, we're going to put it on the Crimson Tonic. We're going to go spend the AP, and this is going to allow me to add 1 HP token. This is a token that will go into a bag, and when it gets drawn out, it actually will heal up the individual. I can put it in Alec's bag, or I can put it in an ally bag. I've got a funny feeling that Grigory's going to be the first person to get hit, as he's going to be going last in this guard turn and probably going to be attacking, so let's put it in his bag. Now Alec does have his Speaking Stone down here, which he can attack one enemy for a +1 modifier, which makes it 3, which would be enough to get through, which is perfect. So he's going to go ahead and activate that. He's able to attack one enemy. He'll choose. It doesn't matter at this point because both of them are starting off right from the start. There's no advantage to choosing one or the other. We'll pick slot 1 for now. So the slot 1 soldier takes 1 damage, dropping down to 9. Alec is going to receive the aggro token, and this is going to matter a lot more in a situation where we have 2 guards in this battle. So whoever attacked last gets that aggro token. So Alec is the last person to attack an enemy. And then we also have an active defense that gets comes from that Speaking Stone as well. So our defense now goes from a 1 to a 2. We now come over to Grigory's turn. He's got a few other chips in the bag now, and he's going to go ahead and draw. He's drawing up to 2 based on his AP that's active. So we're going to go into the bag here. We're going to draw up 2 chips. We get a sword to start things off. That is a black chip, counts against the draw. And next one out of the bag is a double sword. The first one I'm going to go ahead and place right here on advance. We're going to pay 1 AP. I get to add 1 green sword to Grigory's bag. And we're going to go ahead and use this double sword. It's kind of tempting to use this on the Volk Blade, actually. It could be useful. But for now, we'll actually go ahead and place it on this guard one here. This is going to give him a +1 defense, but the cool thing is, it's going to give him a green shield token or chip. And then it's going to chain, because we've already activated one of the chains before, and we don't get that on the first activation, but the second one we do, so we're going to get 2 shield chips going into Grigory's bag. His bag is already starting to explode. And the Speaking Stone that Grigory has is really powerful because it gives a +1 modifier on an attack he already has at 4 for his base, which makes it a 5, which is a huge hit. And he gets to attack all enemies, which is even better. So we're definitely going to activate that. So Grigory's cross/slash swipes both of the soldiers, and they both take 3 damage. And both of the guards refresh their AP. At this point, we come around to the enemy's turn, slot 1 activating first, but just before we do that, we go ahead and discard any evasive chips on the enemies and also any blue chips, and we don't currently have any of those in play, so we move right along, grabbing an 8-eye card to find out what they do. This says it's going to target all allies, and it says it's going to encourage for paying 1 AP, and they're going to gain 1 green AP. Well, that's quite unfortunate because, well, the next individual to go is going to be the other soldier, and this soldier's now going to have more AP to use when it goes. Not good. Over here it then says choose target self and allies. So everybody here between the 2 soldiers, and now it's going to do tactics of the guild, but it needs 2 AP to do it and only has 1, so it cannot do this. The turn ends. And one thing that I just remembered is that this aggro chip should absolutely be on Grigory, as he was the last individual from the guard side of the equation to make an attack. You want to make sure you don't forget that. This card tells us to choose a target based on the lowest defense value, and that's going to be Alec at 1. Grigory has 2. Next, this is going to attack that target with a spear lunge for 1 AP, which it definitely has. It has 3, so now it has just exhausted 1. It's going to attack with a modifier of 1. It has 3 already at its base, so now it's going to be a 4 attack against Alec. The only good news for Alec here is that he does have a +1 defense from his Speaking Stone, so it makes his defense 2, so only 2 damage getting through for him. Alec's taking the hit from 20 to 18. The next thing it'll do is choose itself, and if its health value is 5 or lower, it's going to draw a card. You don't want to see that happen. Good news is this soldier has 7 health, so it won't be happening, and it's really good news because it has 2 AP left over it would have loved to have used. The AP for both the enemies are reset, and we move on to the cleanup phase. So for Alec, it's going to be pretty simple. We're taking the 2 black chips off these cards, and we're placing in the discard area. These cards do not flip, and then we have this activated Speaking Stone going to the exhausted slot. On the opposite side of the equation, we have 2 black chips going to the discard pile. We're going to flip these cards over as it has the icon in the upper left, and then this being active is going to become exhausted. That's going to do it for the cleanup phase. We now move into a new guard turn, and I'm going to choose to have Alec go again first. We're now going to go ahead with Alec here and draw 2 chips out of the bag. We're going to go ahead with the first one. It is going to be a purple. This is a sword and a shield and does not count against the chip draw, so that's pretty nice. Next one out is a sword, and the one after that is a shield. I'm going to start things off by activating Combine for 1 shield chip. 1 AP is spent to do this. I can trigger an Empower effect of 1 card, so an Empower across the bottom of one of these cards. I'm going to choose the one over here for the golden potion that says an ally gains 1 green AP. And so Grigory is getting this in his active AP area. Next up for Alec, I'm going to go ahead and actually use this chip right here for the golden potion. I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 AP to make that happen. I get to gain 1 green AP for Alec. And now after doing that, because it's in the active area, I can use it. I'm going to go ahead and use this final chip here on the Crimson Tonic, and we're going to spend that last AP to cover the requirements, and I can add 1 health chip to Alec's bag or ally's bag. I'm going to put it in Alec's bag. That's going to do it in terms of what I want to use with Alec. It's worth mentioning inside this bag right now, the only thing in here is the 1 HP token that I put in there. So it's very likely at the start of the next turn, I'll be taking an HP hit in order to bring all my black chips from the discarded pile back into the bag. We'll talk more about that later on. Now we head over here to Grigory, who is looking forward to maybe a pretty decent turn here as we get to pull 3 chips from the bag, and his chip bag is very full. And so this could be a big draw depending on how things pan out. First one out of the bag is going to be a health, which is not going to help me right now because I don't have any damage. So that is going to be a positive effect I can't even make use of, unfortunately. Next one out of the bag is going to be a sword. That does count against the draw as 1. Next one out is another sword. Wow, let's shake it up and see what else is in here. Next one is going to be a green sword. We're continuing to shake it. Next one out is a shield, and there is our draw. This should be fun. We're going to go ahead and use a shield and a sword in order to pay the cost for feint. We have to spend 1 AP, which I've done. We get to add a negative defense token to an enemy. We're going to choose the one that is weakened the most so far, which is this one up here at 6. Now with that enemy a little bit weaker, we're now going to go ahead and use 2 swords and use the final 2 AP, thank you Alec for giving me that extra one, in order to trigger critical strike. So we attack one enemy for a +2 modifier, our 4 becomes a 6, and the defense of this individual is knocked down by 1, so we hit it for 5. Now that, my friends, is how you do it. We get a big time hit against one of the soldiers, and Grigory's feeling pretty good about himself. End of the guard's turn, so both of the guards are going to refresh their AP, so Grigory's back up with 3 active, and Alec back up with 3 active. We now move it to the enemy turn. The aggro token is still on Grigory going into this, and again, no evasion chips, no blue cubes to deal with. We're drawing a card off the top. Let's see what we get. We got ourselves lowest defense again. This is going to be another one coming after Alec. Poor Alec. It's going to be a 1 AP spend. It's going to be attack modified by 1. So that is going to be a 4 coming from this soldier. And a 1 defense, that's 3 damage to Alec. So you can see that even if you're the aggressive one in terms of having the aggro token, the enemies are still smart enough to start focusing on somebody in the background supporting. So poor Alec is taking a 3-shot hit here. It's worth mentioning it's 3 this time because the speaking stone for him was not active, so it didn't give him the extra +1 defense. We continue on down the AI card. You'll see the next thing it does is choose itself. If its health is less than 5 or equal to 5, which it definitely is because Grigory just cleaved it quite nicely, it is at 1. It's going to draw a card, so it's going to do that. Now the good news is this one only has 2 AP left, so it should hopefully not do too much to me, but we'll see what happens. Oh, we might have gotten lucky. Let's see here. So the highest attack is going to be the individual as targeting. That would definitely be Grigory. It's going to do an attack disarming swipe, but it needs 2 AP and it doesn't have it, so it doesn't get to do it, and the turn ends. We got out unscathed. Now we move on down to slot number 2. This individual has much more health and more AP. It's a little more scary. Let's go ahead and flip this over and see what happens. It is going to be the lowest defense. It's going to be Alec again getting this attack. Wow. A spear lunge for 1. That is going to be an attack at 4 against 1. Another 3 health hit for poor Alec. He's going from 15 down to 12. The good news in this situation is with all this AP to spend, it's not going to be able to because its health is not equal to 5 or lower, so it will not draw a card. So its turn ends, and it doesn't get to use all this wonderful AP. So at this point, we now go ahead and refresh AP for both slots. And just like that, we're all squared away. We head to the cleanup phase. Now in the cleanup phase is the first time this has happened, but we're going to discard all chips from the enemies and return them to the supply except for green evasion chips. Again, we don't currently have those right now, but we do have this -1 defense, so this is going to be taken away and put back. Now we head over here to Alec to do some cleanup, and we got some chips, so 2 black chips and a purple chip all going back to the discarded area, and we're going to have these cards not flipping over. Nothing here flips. There's no icon on the top left, but there is one here on Combine, so this card is going to flip over to its other side. This stone here in the exhausted slot will go to the ready slot. And just like that, Alec is ready to go, besides the fact he's lost almost half his health. Now we head into Grigory's cleanup, and one mistake that I made that I want to correct. It doesn't impact gameplay whatsoever, but I want to mention I should have moved this gem in the last cleanup to the exhausted slot. So it should be right here right now, and when we do cleanup for this given round, it's going to move to the active slot. We're also going to have green chips going back to the supply, black chips back to the discard, and 2 cards flipping over. That's going to wrap up our cleanup, and we're going to go ahead with Alex starting off the next guard turn. Now, Alex's bag right now is pretty light, so we're going to go ahead and spend an HP in order to bring all of these discarded chips back into his bag. Now let's go ahead and shake these up really good. Draw 3 out of the bag until we have 3 black chips. First one out of the bag is going to be a black chip. It is a sword. Next one out is a health. That's going to be handy. That pays for what I just did. And then out of the bag again, a purple token. So far only 1 black. We keep on drawing here. We got a shield. That is 2 black. And then the next one is a sword. So not a bad pull whatsoever for Alec. He goes up to 12 health thanks to this 1 HP boost. We now have 4 tokens to distribute as we wish with 3 AP to use. I'm going to go ahead and have Alec use the elixir. I really like this elixir. It really helps Grigory out. So we're going to go ahead and pay 1 shield here, 1 AP to put a sword and shield chip into Grigory's bag. I could put it in Alec's, but I'm placing it in Grigory's instead. Next, we're going to use Rima Blade. This is a really good one for 1 sword, 1 AP I have already spent. It says if one other primary or secondary card is active, attack an enemy for +2. So it's going to be 2 for Alec plus another 2 is 4 against 2 defense. So Alec is going to take a swing at this soldier right here, taking this one out. I was tempted to actually make the 2 damage go against the second slot one, but I do kind of want to get rid of one of these soldiers as fast as possible. So let's go ahead and just knock it down. Now I could have used Grigory to make a smaller attack, but most of Grigory's attacks are quite large, and 2 damage is probably quite common on his attacks. So I'll let Alec have this one. So this soldier is now taken out, and the aggro token's moving over to Alec. Next up, I'm going to choose to place this sword right here on the Crimson Tonic because I think Alec wants some health. That would probably be a good idea. We're going to go ahead and spend this last AP here. We're going to add that health token or chip to Alec's bag. And unfortunately, that means I can't use this combo chip here, which would have been really nice for the Golden Potion to get an extra AP. But to be honest, I don't really know if I really need to bolster Alec's AP at this moment, but I did some other things that were quite productive. So I won't be using this one whatsoever. I'll just place it in the discard area. Now, I could have used it in my short sword, but as I've talked about before, it's only 2 actual attack coming from Alec, and the defense of these particular enemies is 2, so that means that would be a wash of an attack, so no point in doing that. And actually, it's kind of funny because this slipped my mind. I probably should have actually activated this Speaking Stone, as it would have given me an attack with a +1 modifier, and that would have been 3 minus 2 would be 1. That would have been better for the top soldier. So what I'm going to do is retroactively change that and have the Speaking Stone be the one that hits the top slot for 1 damage, knocking it out. The other attack that I did is going to do 2 damage, and it's going to go in slot number 2. I should have kept my eyes on the prize on that one. We now head over to Grigory, and I'm actually wondering whether he'll be able to pull off something crazy here because I know his bag is loaded full of green chips. I have, let me see here, how many black chips do I have? 3, 4, 5. So I have 2 black chips in this bag, which means when I start drawing, we're going to see every single chip come out of this bag right now. So this is going to be a crazy pull. So here we go. It's just going to be endless. So the first one out of the bag is a black sword. Next one out of the bag is a green shield. After that, we have a green shield. We have another black shield. We have, and I'm just pulling these now because I know from memory, we just have only positive things in here and there are no black chips to stop the draw. So it is just all good news here for me. So that is a ton to work with. We have exactly what we need in order to pull off a victory, so let's go ahead and do it. We're going to do a cross slash here, attacking all enemies for a +1 modifier. So a 4 going to a 5, minus the 2 here is going to be 3. We're dropping ourselves 1, 2, 3, or not ourselves, I should say. The soldiers being hit for 3. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to activate the Volk Blade, which is going to be a standard attack at 4, minus 2 defense is 2, and that is going to take out the last soldier.
The 2 soldiers lie on the ground, broken spears in hand.
What do you think, Alec? Tie them up and leave them here?
My thoughts exactly.
One of the soldiers manages to rise to a kneeling position.
What? You're not going to kill us?
Why would we do that? You attacked us.
We didn't attack you. We are questioning everyone who goes through here.
Questioning them with spears?
Yes, we're at war. Broken Plow filth have been burning our fields, poisoning our water. We asked the mayor to send the guard, but he won't do anything. and so we are forced to defend ourselves.
After considering the man's words, you extend your hand and help him to his feet.
I'm Grigory, and this is Alec. And what is your name?
Andre.
He answers before helping the other man to his feet.
And this is Oni.
Pleasure,
replies Oni, while simultaneously dusting himself off.
I'm sorry we had this misunderstanding. Perhaps we can make it up to you by speaking to the mayor on your behalf.
Well, I don't know why he'd pay you any mind, but be my guest.
Let's find out the reward for taking down the 2 soldiers. We got ourselves a total of 12 Lux Essence and 20 Sil. And that's going to bump us up to an even 20 for both Lux and Sil. The campaign book tells us to place the narrative chip in Myrrh, which is just 2 nodes away from where we're currently at. We got the mini-map out. It tells us to place it specifically at the Duma Hall. And the campaign now tells us to head back into the exploration phase and continue our journey. And this is a perfect spot to end off Chapter 2, Part 1 of the Isofarian Guard from Sky Kingdom Games, which is coming back for a reprint on GameFound for September 5th. Really hope this video series is helping you make an informed decision on the game. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.